You're not half bad. You killed my father. Like father, like son.
Welcome to the motherfucker. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Earlier today in Australia, Sky Nicholson was able to pitch all of a shutout opposite the ring. Her countrywoman, Mariah Turner, who try as she could not close the distance, could not get close enough to Sky Nicholson often enough to make anything happen. I gave Sky Nicholson every round in the fight. The noticeably taller, longer fighter in the fight, all of which lends itself to Sky Nicholson's long-range fighting.
Long distance.
Half step and a jab here, 2 half steps back and a backhand there. She drew blood. She bloodied Mariah Turner, who was bleeding profusely throughout the course of the fight from her nose, constantly walking into jabs and occasional backhands. Sky Nicholson had a lot of success with her lead, just taking a half step back and landing a jab. As Mariah Turner advances, touching her with the jab, whacking her with the backhand, and Sky doesn't really shoot the backhand straight. She sort of curves it, whacks you with it, on the side of the head, on the side of the face.
Definitely mustard on that hot dog.
You could definitely see there was power in Sky Nicholson's punches, particularly in the 6th round, where she got in clean and sent Mariah Turner careening into the ropes. Sky tried to jump on her. But you know, Sky's not the kind of fighter that normally goes for the big finish. She's a pure boxer. She's going to keep it pure.
Safety first, which has always been the calling card of the outboxer, the pure boxer, and that's what Sky Nicholson is.
Not as many check hooks from Sky as she normally throws in a fight, because that's a sort of signature for her, the check hook.
She didn't need it for this one.
Her power as a super bantamweight seems to be coming along, it being that when she started out at feather, fighting slightly bigger girls, whereas at super bantam, she's got more of a size advantage, a height advantage, a reach advantage, and it's noticeable that she's now landing with a bit more authority than she used to. Stated Mariah Turner could not get close to Sky Nicholson often enough to make anything happen, and in those rare moments where she was within proximity to land a punch, she'd fall so far in, they'd end up in a clinch. It would get really messy and frenzied on the inside. So it was your atypical Sky Nicholson points win.
For those of you out there who like outboxers, you gotta love Sky Nicholson. She's very effective and efficient with that base style. It's not everybody's cup of tea. It's not mine, but oftentimes for Sky Nicholson, that's what works.
Calling out Ellie Scotney for the undisputed title fight immediately following the judges' scorecards being read, and as stated, I just don't know that Ellie Scotney is going to give Sky Nicholson the time of day. All the chatter seems to indicate Ellie's gonna move up. It's gonna be another instance where Sky Nicholson doesn't get the big fight, doesn't get the big name. We all know that when she debuted as a professional, she almost immediately started calling out Amanda Serrano for a fight at featherweight, a fight that never materialized, and it could be the same thing here with Ellie Scotney.
Another fight that doesn't materialize. I don't begrudge Sky Nicholson her ambition, even if I don't like her chances in either fight with Amanda, with Ellie.
She's doing what she's supposed to do. She's calling out the big names, trying to set up the big fights, but unfortunately, I think this is another one that she's going to be deprived of. I think that perhaps it's better for Sky that the Scotney fight doesn't happen, because I think Ellie Scotney would beat Sky.
Though Sky Nicholson herself might disagree, I think that Ellie Scotney has all the ingredients to beat Sky Nicholson, and she would derail all of her momentum. Currently, she's on a 3-fight winning streak after having dropped a decision to Tiara Brown,
putting further distance between herself and that lone career defeat. On the cusp of becoming a 2-weight world champion, I anticipate Sky will be elevated to full super bantamweight champion by the WBC in the absence of an Ellie Scotney fight, making her a 2-weight world champion. And even if she doesn't get the luxury of the big fight with the big name, she does still have both Matchroom, DAZN, and now Foxtel behind her.
The Mariah Turner fight was reported to be a sellout.
I feel like moving forward, Sky's fights are going to be happening in her native Australia. Now that they've got that Foxtel deal that enables her to fight on a regular basis in front of her hometown crowd, she's going to funnel opponents to her. In the absence of Ellie Scotney, Sky Nicholson becomes the biggest name at the weight with the most money behind her,
which will allow her to bottleneck all of the contenders and the new crop of champions that sprout to Australia.
Once Ellie Scotney moves up, drops all of her belts, and other fighters pick up those belts, other champions get crowned, and Sky Nicholson goes after those champions,
They're gonna have to travel. They're gonna have to come to Australia. Congratulations to her. The prediction stuck, and Sky was able to win a comfortable points win.
to stay in position and perhaps become WBC Super Bantamweight champion in the not-so-distant future.
Men's cruiserweight news you may have heard earlier today. Chris Billam-Smith booked to headline Dana White's first UK Zuffa boxing show. Chris Billam-Smith will face Canada's own Ryan Rozicki in the main event of Zuffa Boxing's first event in the UK. Zuffa Boxing, co-founded by UFC CEO Dana White, announced earlier today that Bournemouth's International Centre will host its first show on British soil. In my previous video, we talked about the potentiality of this fight and how I did not expect them to make it right away because Ryan Rozicki is a credible threat to the former champion.
Chris Billam-Smith actually presents as one of the few fighters Zuffa has signed that can actually sell some tickets and drum up some ratings. To then put him in there with Ryan so quickly, Ryan threatens everything you can build with Chris. Former world champion Billam-Smith signed to Zuffa earlier this month. He returned to the winners column in April of last year by defeating Brendan Glenton on the undercard of Eubank's first fight with Conor Benn. The 35-year-old previously represented Ben Shalom's boxer, but is now set to make his Zuffa boxing debut on Sky Sports.
Zuffa's entry into the boxing space has allowed Chris Billam-Smith to enter a new phase of his boxing career because he's already been there and done that with Matchroom, then with Boxer.
Maybe he could have migrated over to Queensbury, but Queensbury doesn't seem to have much of a stake in the cruiserweight division, whereas going to Zuffa breathes new life into his career. He said, "I think it's a great fight to really get my teeth stuck into," Billam-Smith told Sky Sports. "You can't have a bad night against him because of the power he carries, so I need to be on it."
He's right. What stands out most of all about Ryan Rozicki, besides his come-forward aggressive style, is the power that he carries. You don't want to let this guy hit you clean.
I feel revitalized, especially going back home with a new deal as well. It's really put a spring in my step. Then obviously, there's some huge fights down the line with Zuffa for me, so I'm really excited. Billam-Smith won the WBO Cruiserweight title from Lawrence Okolie in May of 2023, 3 years ago. The gentleman defended it for the first time 7 months later against Matthias Masternak, his last fight in Bournemouth to date. Billam-Smith made another defense of the burgundy and gold strap against Richard Riakporhe at Selhurst Park, but dropped the belt to Zurdo Ramirez in November of 2024.
Should he overcome the Canadian Rozicki, Billam-Smith will no doubt have his sights firmly set on a fight against Jai Opetaia, the inaugural Zuffa Cruiserweight champion. Opetaia won the title by outpointing Billam-Smith's former foe, Brendan Glenton, in Las Vegas last month. The undefeated Aussie was stripped of his IBF title 2 weeks after defeating Glenton due to Zuffa Boxing introducing the major sanctioning body's belt as a cruiserweight world title at the pre-fight press conference. Rozicki says Billam-Smith is in for the roughest fight of his life. Rozicki, meanwhile, has lost just once in his 23-fight pro boxing journey.
Wasn't even a cruiserweight either.
The Bruiser knocked out Chilean Gerardo Mulatto in his last fight, having suffered his only career defeat to Dillian White's former foe, Oscar Rivas, way back there in 2021. "I'm very excited for this fight," said the 31-year-old. "I'm very excited to fight in front of the UK fans. The UK has some of the most passionate boxing fans in the world. A long line of boxing history in the UK. I think stylistically we match up really well. It could be fight of the year. Chris will be in the toughest fight of his life. A lot of respect for him. I'm giving 110%, and that's it."
It's all in the name, Bruiser. Ryan is not one to mince many words. He's not a big talker.
He does all his talking in the ring. Likes to model himself after the late, great Jack Dempsey.
Best described as a mid-range to inside pressure fighter, and a very strong one. As stated, you don't want to let this guy hit you clean, and it being that Chris Billam-Smith doesn't really have the best defense.
Now, there's a legitimate argument that Chris Billam-Smith's quality of competition is head and shoulders above Ryan Rozicki's, with wins over Richard Riakporhe,
Tommy McCarthy 2 times, Isaac Chamberlain, Lawrence Okolie, and even the loss to Zurdo Ramirez counts towards Chris Billam-Smith's overall experience level at the weight. That Chris has regularly been in there with the better fighters compared to Ryan, but that doesn't make Ryan any less dangerous because he told us a lot about himself when he fought Oscar Rivas back in 2021.
That he's durable, that he's strong, that he's persistent, and
I've seen a lot of his fights since then, and he's a dangerous guy. He's a dangerous customer. If you can shake and bake him, you can give him problems, but that's not the kind of fighter that Chris Billam-Smith is. He's got the stronger corner.
he's got Shane McGuigan.
Ryan Rozicki would not present as a difficult puzzle to solve or a difficult fighter to understand. With him, what you see is what you get, and it's just a question of, can you handle it? Can you deal?
Because he's not here to fence and fiddle with you and try to win the quiet moments. From the opening bell, this guy is gonna come after you.
Chris Billam-Smith, he himself not being a sugarfoot fighter, an outboxer, an outside fighter, he's got the same sweet spot as Ryan Rozicki. So this fight has all the potential to be a fight of the year contender.
Cruiserweight version of Mickey Ward versus Arturo Gatti.
It would seem that luck spun the block when it comes to Ryan Rozicki, who was supposed to have faced Badu Jack on the undercard of one of Turki El Al Sheikh's shows, but he suffered an injury and had to withdraw.
It was supposed to be for the WBC title.
Underneath it all, I believe that Ryan has had his fill of dealing with the alphabet organizations, who in many ways allowed Noel Mikhailian to openly avoid him.
The World Boxing Council.
I mean, it's all well and good to worry about your legacy and fight for the titles, try to fight for the belts, but it's prize fighting at the end of the day. And going to Zuffa would present bigger prizes than any prize Ryan has got so far.
The cruiserweight division, in a very general sense, doesn't kick out but so much money when it comes to so many fighters. Going to Zuffa, he probably stands to make more than he would using the existing framework. He's based out of Canada, Nova Scotia more specifically.
Promoted by a small, well-to-do promotional outfit in Three Lions Promotions, and now he's stepping up to the big leagues and fighting on a major platform, Sky Sports in the UK, Paramount Plus in the US.
I love the fight.
Set to go down in early June, primetime hours for a boxing match in the UK, but in the afternoon in the US, I'm going to assume.
Like any other UK show.
And it's a fantastic fight, but as stated, I did not expect Zuffa Boxing to put this one together so soon because Chris is one of the few fighters they have that can actually sell some tickets. You put him in there with Ryan, you're throwing caution to the wind. He could lose this one.
Yeah, well, maybe that's what boxing needs. For the powers that be to stop being so careful and cautious and just make the fucking fights. And let the chips fall where they may.
You and I know who Moises Satama is. Most people don't.
He's so good, though.
But no
right?
people know who he is.
In the UK, they do.
A little bit, but like everyone, yes, but not here at all.
How good is he, though?
And by the way,
Yeah.
here people don't care that much about. Don't make any mistake. You think people really care here about Joshua and Fury? Like, you get a sense the average sports fan here gives a
Not
fuck.
really. It's a stretch.
It's a stretch.
Yeah.
So while it is true that the Americans are lukewarm to the Joshua versus Fury showdown, that is more of an indictment on this boxing scene than that boxing match, because that boxing match is still one of the biggest that you could hope to make in the industry, set to generate millions upon millions of dollars, so that if the Americans aren't big on it, maybe they're just not big on boxing.
Friend of the channel, David Graverman, said, Lou always sounds bitter. This Fury versus AJ fight is what the British public want. No one cares what the average American fan doesn't care about.
I mean, don't you notice whenever some big news breaks about a big fight that's maybe happening outside of America, the Americans always go sit in a corner, fold their arms, and pout about it?
Yeah.
It's not just when it comes to Joshua versus Fury. You might have heard something similar about Inoue versus Nakatani, because it's happening in Japan.
Yeah.
So maybe it's that boxing is a lot more international than it used to be. It's more a global sport now than it ever was, and because of that, that token American xenophobia is always coming out, always rearing its ugly head.
Americans harping that they're not excited about the party. You're not invited. You're not needed.
It's not a requisite that you attend for it to be a big party, for it to be a big fight, the biggest in the industry.
Some of them.
Because what the fuck are the Americans and their fighters doing that compares? What's happening in America that moves the needle anymore?
They're doing a whole too cool for school thing. Okay, so go be cool by your fucking self.
Saying they don't care. The world doesn't care what you do and don't care about. D Styles, another friend of the channel, said, what the fuck is this middleman's point? What's he trying to accomplish with his bitter takes? weeks. He's just mad. He didn't sign any of these guys, so he can't let another promoter do all the work, and he could collect his middleman check for pushing papers.
Yeah, D. Styles was a lot less diplomatic about it than I am.
Though what he said rings true. You're saying that the Americans don't know Moses Atelma, and they're not excited about Joshua versus Fury, all of which are bigger than anything you've done in ages. And right now, you know what Lou's trying to do? He's trying to get in good with the top brass at Zuffa to see about getting George Kambosos over there. That's what you've got going on. How many Americans do you think give a damn about George Kambosos?
How do you think news about Ferocious George compares with news about Joshua versus Fury or Moses Atelma, who's got another fight coming up over the summer months? What do you think is more of a blip on the radar of the boxing fan, the international one?
Not just the Americans. Not that Americans are all that enthused about George. Because they're not. Lou Dibella is another guy who's been in the industry too long, to the point it's made him bitter. All of his failures. I remember at a brunch with then District Attorney Harvey Dent. Harvey told me,
What?
you either die the hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. I believe that applies here to Lou Dibella, as so much of what you hear from Lou these days is all bitter. It's all jaded.
Never mind who doesn't care about Joshua versus Fury, or who doesn't know about Moses Itelma, because you know about these events. You're supposed to be the boxing guy, and that's the most that you have to say about it?
Yeah, you sound bitter, and that's how Lou Dibella always sounds. If you've been paying attention, long gone are the days, the glory days, of his time at HBO.
When he was an executive over there, subsequently going into business for himself as a boxing promoter, rubbing elbows with the people at the PBC back when the PBC was the land of milk and honey.
Resentful of almost everybody in the industry, it seems, he regularly takes shots at Eddie Hearn, who he now claims Dana White is a better promoter than Eddie.
And I don't think that was an honest evaluation. I think that was just Lou being bitter again. He's always harbored hostility towards Eddie Hearn.
Underneath it all, I think Lou's always resented that when DAZN needed a point man in the United States to debut here, they didn't go with him. They didn't go with Lou. They went with the Brit.
Because the Brit had the track record for it. Lou didn't. Lou really is just the middleman.
That's what he has been. Combing the chicken gizzard circuit for fighters he can get under contract to then rent them out to bigger promoters that actually have network deals, because he doesn't.
He's a middleman.
More of a facilitator than a promoter. Bitter boxing takes aside from Lou, Joshua versus Fury is one of the biggest fights in the entire industry you could hope to see this year. And Moses Atelma is one of the brightest young stars in the industry, whether the Americans acknowledge him or not. They don't have to.
For Christ's sake, they barely spend any money on their own fighters. Nobody expects them to support somebody else's.
So tell me something I don't know.